Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I want to present the result of my research that I have made last week. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Anas Masea. I study at Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta in English Education Department. So let's go to the research that I want to present today. So the topic is an analysis of students' motivation in learning English for speaking skills at English Education Department of UMA. So why I choose this topic? Because the first is motivation plays an important role in learning English. Because motivation is very important in our life, and one of parts that need motivation is in learning. Without motivation, I believe that everyone will lack of an energy and willing to study in learning language and whatever subject or whatever learning or I will not have an energy to do or to learn and English learning and also the other subject. So the second is motivation becomes popular topic to discuss in learning language. Because as we know, there are many researchers and many students that make a motivation as a title and as a topic in their research. Because motivation is an interesting topic to be choose and to be discussed in the study and in the research. And the last is to know the effect of motivation amongst language learners. To know that whether motivation give a positive effect or negative effect among the learner that learning language if they have motivation in their learning. The next is background of the study. The current English language is the central language of the world and central language of humanity, which is a human language in the world. Crystal 1997 states that the big one reason of the language become a global language is people. Therefore, learning English is very important because it will enable us to confidently develop and move forward. Learning has important elements, especially in English learning. So in this study have two objectives. The first is to know how the students make motivation in learning English in speaking skills at English Education of UMA. The first objective is want to know how the students make or create or build the motivation to have in themselves to have a motivation in themselves to learn English. For example, maybe they will think that they want to be a good English speaker, or they want to be a good teacher, or they want to be a good lecturer in the future, or they want to be a translator in the future. The second is to identify the factors that affect the students' motivation in learning English in speaking skill at English Education of UMA. The The second is to identify or to know, to list the factor that will make the motivation in to be to have a good effect. For example, is to make motivation have a good effect in learning, they have to struggle in the factor. The factor, yeah. Now we focus to the factor that will make among to students' motivation. The example is struggling, struggling and not lazy is one of the factor that will make students' motivation become successful. What I need to be found is top in this study is an analysis. Yes, an analysis of students' motivation in learning English for speaking skills at English education of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. Significance of the study is the expected result from this study is to show the students' motivation in learning English in speaking skills at Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. At the end of this study, we want to know the results of students' motivation. And then we will go to the review of literature. What is the definition of motivation? Motivation is defined here as students' inclination, energy, and drive to learn, work effectively, and achieve potential. Martin, 2013. The importance of motivation learning is learning process and progress will be effective when students intended and struggle in learning. Like I said before, struggle and have a power and have an energy to learn is very important to make some student become a successful student or successful English learner. There are two types of motivation. The first is intrinsic motivation and the second is extrinsic motivation. What is intrinsic motivation? It is behavior that is driven by internal rewards. In other words, the motivation to engage in behavior arises from within the individual because it is natural, satisfying to you. This contrasts with extrinsic motivation, which involve engaging in a behavior in order to earn external reward or avoid punishment. As a concluded, intrinsic motivation is come from ourselves, or the factor is come from our intention, our preference that we want to do something or that we want to learn something, come from ourselves. The second is extrinsic motivation, refers to behavior that is driven by external rewards such as money, fame, grades, and praise. This type of motivation arises from outside the individual as opposed to intrinsic motivation, which originates inside of the individual. The intrinsic motivation is the factor is money, grades, parents, friends, environments, That is the fact. That is extrinsic motivation. Come from the come from uh, environment, come from parents, friends, money that you want have much money in the future. Let's go to the methodology in this study. The methodology research design is qualitative and quantitative. The research instrument we use questionnaire and interview. Data collection. The first is choose 6 students. The second, prepare questionnaire, and then give questionnaire to the students to write down. Next, interview students based on the questionnaire, and the last is collect the results. Thank you for your attention for today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.